Hi, this is Margaret Maloney, and welcome to the Death Dhamma podcast. Together we will consider life, death, and impermanence. Because in between birth and death, we lose things. Not just our glasses and our keys. We lose identities, relationships, ideas, and more. But what we can gain right now is facing this together, and we will gain freedom, peace, and progress on our path. Everyone, today we have Hector Marcel with us, and Hector comes from a very extensive background in Tibetan Buddhism. And I feel like, as I do in the past, sometimes the best thing to do is to let Hector tell you about Hector. So Hector, thank you so much for being here, and tell us about yourself, please. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Margaret. Favorite topic, me? No, only kidding. Here we go.
All of us.
It's all of our favorite topics, right? It's just interesting for that me to listen and hear Hector being introduced as a Tibetan Buddhist, because I'm a little bit of a rebel as a Tibetan Buddhist, but I'm deeply practiced and deeply studied. So I've studied for 25 years. The English translations to the Tibetan Buddhist monastic texts that takes like 20 years to study, meaning exactly the same text that the Dalai Lama has studied, have been, the essence of which have been translated into this 8-year course that I've been taking with my teachers, and I've now taught several times. Wow. And these are like 5 great books of ancient India. And they go deep into philosophical basis for perception, phenomenology, the nature of mind, karma, emptiness, meditation, and all these practices. They study them deeply. And so I'm deeply immersed, but I've been this reluctant Buddhist, meaning I don't want to be called a Buddhist. And so, when you introduce me, I'm like,
okay, not so good, but no labels, please. Well, I'm a accidental late in life Buddhist, but
and I think but anyway, I digress. So I have this deep insight into something that hasn't really been translated much into English. Like the texts that I've studied, there's very rare translations, and just to get a glimpse at an Eastern view of what this magical thing that life is, and what the human condition is, but looking at it from a completely different insight than we are used to. Oh my God, that's just opened up my world in the last 25 years. And although I'm a reluctant Buddhist, I can't think a different way now after 25 years. So I feel very fortunate to have this knowledge and have practiced it and begin to see results in my life with family, friends, self-identity, shedding constrictions and the rest. So I bumped into Tibetan Buddhism 25 years ago in New York City, Lower East Side, where Heebie-Jeebies was. I don't know if you know what that is, in the Bowery. And I didn't know that I walked into this Tibetan Buddhist place because it was their opening night. It was party. It's called Three Jewels. And I was going to a neighbor's house to go and get drunk in my 20s, thinking I was going to have a good time. And I walked into the wrong party. I walked into this Tibetan Buddhist thing. And then this life unraveled for me. I met meditation. I met friends that became friends for the rest of my life. And then this study began. Now I run Three Jewels after 25 years. I've been running it for 11 years. And it's like the hub of this kind of insight in the Lower East Side in Manhattan. It's very modern. We have 46,000 visits a year. We teach yoga, meditation, Dharma. It's really cool to have a community of people who live everyday lives that come together, applying these ideas that has come from the East, combined to the West. And then you get to literally Buddha, which is the translation from Buddha is the one who woke up, Bud, to awake. You get to Buddha every day yourself to go, oh, I think the world's this way. Hold on, Buddha, I wake up a little to a little bit more of me and the world through just being in community and studying and practicing in the office and at home and the rest. So I feel very fortunate to have turned my life this way. Yeah.
So there you were, just looking for a good time. And you found a a good time, but in a different way, right? Like you're
for the best time.
Yeah, you're looking for a party, and you joined the ultimate party, one might say. And you're so enthusiastic. So I'm curious. You say reluctant.
Yeah.
And may I ask, like, do you still feel reluctant, or where is that reluctance?
Yeah.
Because I don't hear it, like such enthusiasm you bring.
Really? Oh, yeah.
So what's the reluctance, if I may?
I honestly, it's one of the last remaining things. Well, not last. I've probably got 1,000 things I haven't cleared up yet, but it's one of the things that keeps persisting.
Okay.
My reluctance is myself misunderstanding that an ism like Buddhism becomes dogma. And so although I can say all the Buddhist words, I can tell you about Master Shantideva, 700 AD, who taught the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, and he did the six. Who gives a rat's? What does that mean? That's the reluctance. That's the rebel. It's got to mean something, you see. If I become an old crusty Buddhist, I'm not helping anyone because of my language.
I see. So is it a reluctance to cling to rituals and traditions?
I feel that
engaged might be a word. Sometimes people think that all we do is sit on cushions and don't do anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
No, it's precisely that. I keep thinking of the time when the Buddha Buddha'd, right? And then all the thousands of people like you and me and the people listening who have met the human condition, met suffering, fell in love, had babies, didn't have babies, wore beautiful clothes, hated the clothes a week later. Everyone went through the same stuff. The Buddha wasn't saying become a Buddhist. He wasn't a Buddhist. He's saying what to do with this stuff, what to do with this life. If you really want to release the grip of suffering, and the suffering will come like my peanut butter ran out. Right. Or the suffering will come when your partner passes away. Yes. Or like the suffering will come. No, I'll take that back. Pain will come.
Yes.
We turn it into suffering unless we know how not to. And so we do suffer until we figure out how not to.
The way somebody phrased it to me once, and I won't wonder what you think about this, is like pain plus resistance equals suffering.
That's great.
And that really helps me, because every once in a while I kind of have to remind myself, like, what are you resisting here? And all these things that you're talking about, these events in our lives, are all met with impermanence. And there's this idea I have that impermanence of all kinds helps us practice and get ready for what I call, the ultimate impermanence.
Yeah. I'm assuming you mean death, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think that you have a lot of wisdom that you can help us apply in terms of the path of impermanence, from the small things to the big things.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your thoughts around that.
Maybe I'll start with a very personal story, because that way we go right into the heart. Yeah.
Yes. That's nice. Thank you.
So let's picture a young 20-year-old Hector going to get drunk.
Okay.
walks into a Tibetan Buddhist bookstore, and it's like, I don't want to be a Buddhist. Even though I was really fascinated and what they were saying really resonated, I fought that for 2 years. I'm not a Buddhist. I'm just going to suck up their energy, or something. It was free or by donations. I was taking advantage of the Buddhists.
I see.
The rebel Hector, Following years, as life happens to all of us, I kept more and more putting my mind sought refuge in the ideas that those monks and nuns were teaching. And nothing else was as strong a refuge, because the ideas they were teaching me through meditation, philosophy, kindness practice, loving kindness, etc., actually were the things that sustain me. So imagine now that 10-year-old kid who was, wild, began to tame himself through the teachings, right? Fast forward 20 years later, 23 years later, and I get that phone call that we all know is coming, but we didn't want to come. And it's my mum.
Ouch.
And she's in Australia, I'm in New York. And she's calling me. I had called her for Mother's Day.
Okay.
I had called her, and she wasn't the same on the phone. Something was off. So at the end, and we're very good friends. We were really good friends. And I'm like, what's going on, Mum? And she's like, I didn't want to tell you all because it's Mother's Day. But I got results from a test that I went to get done last month because I was nervous about something. And I've got terminal cancer. I've got pancreatic cancer.
Ouch.
And, my heart sunk. But instantly, my mind went into the wisdom and insight that I had the fortune for 23 years to practice. Instantly, I knew what to do.
Right.
And it wasn't that I wasn't terribly sad and heartbroken. It was that I knew exactly there is something to do in these moments, as we all will meet these moments, that could make the massive difference to her mind, to me, and to our family. Yeah. So I went into this, what used to be contrived Buddhist practice, into this stunning, uncontrived, flowing out of me like a fountain, purposeful, loving kindness practice in action, like there's this word bodhicitta, and with the wisdom that understands why this is important. So I had this, what they call the two wings of a bird, wisdom and method. Yeah. And it surprised me because, up until then, you always have doubt about whether your practice is making a difference because life continues to be life and your change is very slow. It's like aging in the mirror. You're like, oh, I look, but if I look at my picture from 20 years ago,
a year ago, 2 years ago.
So here I am.
This thing over my eye.
Exactly. So I get this phone call or this conversation with my mum, and I'm like, I'll fly there right away, Mum. And so here comes that important moment, that one in a lifetime moment for all of us, with Mum and Dad, with partner or friend, with other people. And so it's easy to philosophize about death and impermanence. It's easy, like we can talk about it philosophically, no problem.
Sure.
But then here it is in your mouth. It's inside you now, And so I spent the next 3 months on my mum's bedside, putting into practice the refuge that I had found over those years. And it was the most sublime and stunning connection, deeper than I had ever had with my mum.
Oh, wow.
And deeper than she had with me and us. Because all the facade dropped. We don't need to pretend the house is important anymore. We don't have to pretend that the garden needs tending. We don't have to pretend. We can go to the source of why I love you, And we can also go to the source of what's holding you down, Mum. Like we can let go of that right now.
Right. What can you let go of to make this easier for you?
Yeah.
That's
and so we went there. Okay. And we went there very clearly. Like there's an entire philosophy on what happens at death, and it's detailed in Tibetan Buddhism. But the essence was, for those 3 months, thanks to impermanence, thanks to the fact that this has come, and really thanks to the 20-something years of having practiced that intellectually, or in my mini deaths when things changed or when relationships broke, or because that practice is what gave me the strength at that moment, to a point where my mind was genuinely at peace, like genuinely deeply at peace, in such a way that I knew her mind, wherever it went and whatever it did to continue, had a higher percentage chance that the next experience would be sublime, because she was truly free from some things that had gripped her in her life. And she left with this deep, deep sense of love and joy that just exuded from her, even though her body looked like crap. It just, it was destroyed. But there was definitely an arising of this angel kind of person. And I felt I had I knew how to get us together there. And so I'm not like singing my own praises. It was genuine for Mum that something had shifted in her life towards this time. And it was also seen by the nurses and the other practitioners, like what she was doing in that ward. She was just magnetizing people. And so here I am 25 years later, recognizing the benefits of placing my mind in the ideas of Eastern philosophy. And in practice, it frees a ton of suffering, but that's not enough to get rid of suffering. It's not enough.
Okay.
You need to build bliss. You need to build bliss.
Okay.
You can't just get to neutral ground and stop the suffering. It's just like, okay, then what? And most people that I talk to, everyday people, there's this misconception that Buddhist practice or meditation or these philosophies are just to be neutral while terrible things happen. That's not true. It's not to be neutral. Well, I mean, you got cancer. Okay, Mom, I don't care. It's not true.
I think that's a misunderstanding of equanimity. Is that possible?
Exactly?
Right?
Yeah,
It's a misunderstanding of equanimity, and maybe it's because of how it's translated, or how we view the translation of equanimity in English. I think we do think of it as being.
You have to be
nothing
equally happy when bad things happen and good things happen. And that's not true.
Right.
And the proof of that in Buddhist thought is the Buddha didn't let go of desire. And I know that sounds controversial.
Ooh, let's go there. Say, why? You said you were rebellious, so let's rebel.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is a technical debate in Indian text, so it's not my own thinking.
And it's an important discussion, because I think that very many teachings are that the Buddha had let go of all of those things, but yet I guess I'll just slip in a small thing, is like, but he still got hungry.
Yeah, good. But the debate back would be, he didn't get hungry like we get hungry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
sorry.
That could be true, because you wouldn't want to be talking to me right now if I was hungry. But I don't claim to be enlightened. I'm practicing.
No. It's
capital
good.
P practice. But let's hear your perspective of why you say this.
So this comes from an old Indian text, but it basically says the Buddha desires you to be free from suffering. Therefore, he has desire.
Oh.
It's not ignorant desire, meaning a desire that misunderstands how things work. Mm-hmm. Because it's ignorant desire, misunderstanding how things work, that leads to suffering. You see, and you touched on it at the beginning, the link between suffering and pain. You said it's resistance, right?
Right.
And resistant implies, I don't know what the hell is going on. I want it to be something else. I don't want it to be this. I want something else. And in that resistance, you're not even acknowledging what actually is happening.
Right.
I'll give you, little sidetrack. I just broke up from my partner after 9 years together, just last month. We did it mutually. We did it very Buddhisty. Don't worry. Yeah, we're both okay. But no.
Okay, but it's still not easy. But I'm glad that you're both okay.
Yeah. The dismantling is still suffering. You see, it's still pain.
Yes.
But consciously, we knew it was the right decision.
Okay.
Now, the impulses, my biology, their biology wants to resist the reality that we aren't in the physical space anymore.
Right.
So now the bed is empty, or I make tea by myself, and my mind will have a nice little narrative to blame them for my loneliness. And I'm looking at it going, oh, look at that.
Sure.
That I was part of the decision. I actually chose it too.
You were there. You remember you were there, right?
Yeah, I was there. But right now, the illusion or the misunderstanding or the new desire has misunderstanding on it. You see, I just lied to myself about what truly is. What is that they're not here. I am having a cup of tea on my own. A feeling of loneliness arose. My mind lied in saying the loneliness is because of them. That's not true.
Right.
Because
our mind does that. It thinks it's helping us feel better, but it's not helping us feel better. Because then, and you're not going there, but like if I allowed that to really fully arise in me, then I'm going to have anger and disappointment and bitterness with my former partner. And so now I'm plummeting again.
Correct. And
right?
that's the desire that the Buddha let go of.
Okay.
The ignorant desire that would have you create more suffering.
So the Buddha wanted us to be able to use his teachings to become free from suffering, but he wasn't going to be up all night biting off his nails.
Exactly.
In 2,600 years, will Margaret get this? Right, like that. He wasn't that. And I guess if I had been around during his time and I wasn't getting it, I guess he would let go of the disappointment that came that I wasn't getting it.
Well, he can't resist because Margaret gets enlightened. With Margaret's mind, Buddha can't get you enlightened.
Right. He can just point the way, right?
Yeah. So, if Margaret doesn't get enlightened, him getting angry about it, upset about it, isn't going to add any goodness to the entirety of existence. Mm-hmm. It's not his job. So to fight that it should be his job would cause him suffering.
Yes.
And so he let go of that. So a complete acceptance of what is required to unravel the suffering parts of what is. And it's just the beginning of the path, because we've got the habit of wanting to resist reality, you see?
Yes. And this brings us to part of the discussion of impermanence and wanting and attachment and clinging and aversion, right? So yeah. I feel like what you're saying is it's okay to want something or not want something, because we are going to do that. So we're not trying to wipe that away 100%. We are trying to respond to it in a healthier manner that doesn't cause the suffering. Is it fair to say it that way?
Close, I think. I mean,
let's hear you say it.
Yeah, there's this. The first painting ever made of a Buddha is called the Bhava Chakra. It's called the Wheel of Life, or the Wheel of Becoming. Okay. And you'll see it at the entrance of every monastery. It's actually part of the Vinaya, the text that monastics use. In that text, the Buddha gave instructions. You must have, wherever you gather, a reminder of this suffering world, the samsara of your world. The wheel of life. And so it's a very detailed painting, but it was actually a painting made of him for a gift to a king of the time. And in this painting, it's a wheel, imagine, of continuous cycles. I suffer, my reaction to suffering is misunderstands the suffering. So I misunderstood that my loneliness came from my partner not being here. So that was a misunderstanding, created more suffering, which creates more now anger towards the partner. And then that wheel of suffering gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And we're forever locked in a cycle of addiction, intellectual addiction, philosophical addiction, emotional addiction, eventually physical addiction. Can I call my partner? Please come. Right. I can't have a cup of tea. Yeah. And then there's no happiness there. Right. There's just the impulse to grab onto something that isn't there. That's misunderstanding, or they call it ignorant desire. Okay. We do the same for aversion. We do the same for running away from things. I didn't like what you said, so don't say it. Oh, she said it again. Don't say it. And now my head is going, as soon as the word comes out, I'm going to be offended. And then the next words that come out, I'm going to be more offended. And then we create a mini cycle, a daily cycle of getting offended, because I misunderstand that offending can't come from your words. And this is an important distinction. It comes from my mind's connection to your words. You know, have you ever said a rude word to someone you totally love in fun? Yes. You know, like, of course you have. And it's brought them joy, right? It's like,
we've giggled. Like, you call someone a name and then we giggle. But if I went out on the street and just randomly called somebody that, it's not going to go so well.
So what that proves is this distinction between desire and ignorant desire. There isn't substance in the actual word. The word doesn't cause your suffering. The word is just decibels up and down. I'm saying a word, a naughty word, a naughty word.
Because I was taught it was naughty.
Yeah, exactly. But the person that is attached to those words having a meaning because it personally annoyed them, they'll suffer. The person that likes it and says, oh, please, Kate, keep saying that word. I enjoy it. The Buddha said eventually they'll suffer too, because they might be attached. Yeah.
Because being attached to wanting, keep saying it, you're making me laugh. It's fun. I want
fun. Now, exactly. If you misunderstand that the happiness that came from the word or the unhappiness that came from the word is not in the word, if you don't understand that, you will both suffer.
There we go. Round and round.
So now you have to go the middle way. So in this picture called the Bhava Chakra, in the very center of the picture, the thing that turns the wheel is misunderstanding, ignorance, ignorance of what actually is, misunderstanding of where your emotions and thoughts and conceptions come from, your mind, not the out there, the in there. And then from that is stemmed two other ideas, ignorant liking, ignorant disliking. And those three together create the spin. Because I don't understand that my mind is the filter through which I experience my reality, and that's the only reality I'll ever see. Mm-hmm. I think my reality comes from those words or the lack of partner. And I'll reject things or I'll cling to things. And the more I cling, the more this wheel goes round and round and round, and I'm locked. And outside that wheel is this terrible red monster like our devil or something. Right. And his name is Yama. He's death or impermanence. That's his job, is to keep us locked into this cycle.
Locked into the wheel of samsara, right?
And outside, outside that wheel is Buddha. He's not inside the wheel. He's outside the Buddha, the wheel. And he's pointing to the other side of the painting on the back of the head of the death guy to a moon, a big white circle moon, which represents nirvana, a state of mind that is outside the cycles of suffering. It's entered through the middle way. Yeah. Okay. There's another way of interpreting things.
How could we, so maybe if you don't mind, maybe we'll consider the tea. How can I take having tea or coffee by myself and use that and impermanence to help myself? Great
question. Yeah. Again, it's practice, right? I didn't get to my mom's deathbed quickly. It took 25 years, 23 years for me to actually be very at peace for the entirety of that thing and only do things with her that were beneficial for the moment. Physical things, clean your bum, take you to the shower, do all the things you can't do, but more deeply, getting her mind to a goodness, to a part of her mind that is in bliss most of the time and not in suffering, because that kind of mind creates that kind of mind again. A suffering mind creates a suffering mind again. When you're angry and someone says a nice thing to you, you're not going to believe it. Sure. When you're happy and someone says a terrible thing, it's like water off a duck's back. So sure. You're like, whatever. Oh, I'm happy. Yeah, whatever.
La, you can't hurt me.
Exactly. And we fluctuate between those states of mind. So one of the core ideas that come from that Bhava chakra and the process of death and so on, releasing the grip from the thing, is at the moment of death or dying or towards the end of impermanence, can we flip our minds from suffering to the best, blissful, most positive states of mind we can think of, because that will cause the next moment after death. Okay. And so your next life or your next existence will be infused like tea in water to those states of being.
Here, I'm hearing you say, it's not having someone die and feel nothing, or it's not
correct
having no one to have coffee or tea with and feeling nothing. Yeah. It's how can we move ourselves to feeling bliss?
Correct. That's really the practice. Now, we can't do that unless we understand how things exist, and that's the wisdom side of Buddhism. Okay. And for that, you need to understand karma and emptiness. And I've already explained it, but I've done it sneakingly, and I'll give you the example. Right?
I love sneaky teachings. Okay, yeah. Now you can be obvious to me.
Yeah, no, and to me too, because I still need reminding. That's why I teach now. In the example of the tea, there is nothing in the tea that creates loneliness.
Okay.
Because sometimes I have tea alone and I feel good, and sometimes I have tea alone and I feel lonely.
Okay.
It can't come from the tea. Yeah. It can't come from the ex-partner, because sometimes I like not being next to them and I don't feel lonely. And sometimes I like being I'm next to them and I feel lonely. And sometimes they're not there and I don't feel lonely, and so on and so on.
Right.
So there isn't, and the idea of emptiness means the cup of tea is empty of the nature of creating loneliness. Right. The breakup is empty of the particles of forcing loneliness onto me. You see what I mean?
There's no inherent loneliness in tea.
Or breakup.
Or the breakup.
Correct.
Or the ex-partner.
And there is no suffering in death inherently.
Right. It's what we impute.
Absolutely. Now, so that's the emptiness side. If you get that, you got that. That's all the emptiness teachings are. Is like you can't, when you go looking for where exactly did the loneliness come from, where did the sadness and grief come from that I felt when my mom died, It's not that her body stopped. It can't come from her death. It must have come through the filter with which I've habituated my mind about that part of life.
Right.
And that's the karma side. Those seeds in our minds that force us to feel loneliness right now, because I didn't have a choice. I don't want to feel lonely, but I'm having a cup of tea on my own and I'm lonely. I didn't do it by choice, but here it is. Here is reality. If I resist that, I'm going to make more suffering.
Okay.
Right? But there is loneliness right now.
Right. So you see it. You're not going to deny in this moment with this particular cup of tea, I feel lonely. You're not going to deny that.
You can't, because then that will cause more suffering, more loneliness, actually. Yeah. So, which is annoying, So the resistance against the thing will create more. What you resist persists. Yeah. The resistance towards the thing will create more of the thing. So, but there is loneliness. You can't say there isn't. And that's what the idea of dependent origination, or how things come about, comes from in Buddhism. And you got to go find out, where did this bloody loneliness come from?
Okay.
And you start looking literally for it, right? And you will come up empty. Is it in the tea? You said no already. Is it in the boyfriend not being here? No, it's not there either. Is it in that I'm alone in a room? No, I've been alone in a room many times and I've not been lonely.
Right.
So you won't find it there, but it is there.
But it's there. It exists, but you can't attach it to a thing or a condition. You can't say
except one thing. Except one thing you can attach it to.
And that is?
Your consciousness. It came from my mind. It's something in my mind that, out of all the million possibilities, because the cup of tea could have been blissful, it could have been disgusting, it could have been the best cup of tea ever, it could have made me feel pondering, or whatever the word might be,
Okay, sure.
But out of the kaleidoscope of possibilities that are available to have when you have a cup of tea, my mind chose one: loneliness.
And it chose loneliness. Like, of all these things, we put them all together and shook it up. And in that particular moment, shaking it up like an Etch-a-Sketch or a kaleidoscope or something, right now it was loneliness.
And to deny it would be to be incorrect, because it is there. Right. To think it's in the cup of tea is also incorrect, because it's not there. We come up empty. Where is it? Because it is there, but it's not the way I think it is. And that's the illusion, right? The illusion is that it's in the cup of tea or in the boyfriend or whatever. Let's go digging. And when you go looking, you will come to understand that your mind labeled this experience suffering. It's convenient for the mind. Biologically, we are constantly creating frameworks for reality, and we mistake the frameworks for the reality. We attach loneliness to the cup of tea, and we think cups of tea make me lonely. Right. Breakups make me sad. Yeah. Right. And that's not true. That's a mistaken attachment to tea or rejection to loneliness, right? Those two things. Yeah. But when you go looking, sorry, I have to say one more thing.
Yes.
You can't say that it came out of nowhere. You can't say that about loneliness, because everything is caused. Just like the cup of tea is caused, just like my body is caused, cause and effect, karma, right? The ultimate cause of that is someone or something must have planted the seed in my mind for that mind to project and flower that reality onto the cup of tea.
That for some reason, in this moment, with this
condition,
cup of tea, I should feel lonely.
Yeah.
So here it has come out of me.
Exactly. So it must be
the conditions were planted.
So the causes must be somewhere in me.
Right.
How did I put it there? I didn't want to put loneliness in there. Where the hell did that come from? And this is where all the deep teachings on Vinaya, how to maintain an ethical code in your life. Morality and religion have always been linked for this very reason. If you get this, you'll be on your way to freedom. If people get this is what I kept coming back to as refuge. It's the fact that whatever I do in my world with my body, speech, and mind, what I say, and the intentions behind it, they plant those imprints in my mind, which, just like seeds, take time to grow and multiply. And when the conditions are right, cup of tea and break up, that seed ripens. And then my mind is forced. So have I made people lonely in the past? Causes my own loneliness. And I'll give you this example, and hopefully it works. I could say, which I believe, I really like your hair, Margaret, right? Like, because you got hair and I don't, because it's got a nice color and a shine.
I'll take
right?
it. I'll take it.
Yeah. So I like your hair and I mean it, but you don't know if I mean it.
No,
you see, you don't, but you took it and you're like, oh, thanks.
Sure.
Nice interaction. Now, that's good. What happened in Hector's mind when he said, I like your hair? Let's imagine two Hectors, right?
Okay.
The Hector that means it, hey, I like your hair. An awareness of my mind is watching me have a intention and give it shape. And I said it, I like your hair. That's what happened. Yeah. That recording, that awareness is the seed that eventually becomes the thing later.
Okay.
If I say to you, I like your hair, and a part of me is like, I don't really like her hair. Oh my God, look at her hair. And that voice is going in my
I just
head.
feel like I should say something nice to her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But if I had incongruency between what I said and what I thought, that incongruency is felt deeply in the mind, and that also plants a seed.
Okay.
And so that seed is now in my mind, if you will. And seeds take time to grow. It could be a week, 3 months, a year. That's the law of karma, and we can go.
And we don't know.
Someone walks up to Hector 3 weeks from now, says, Hector, your beard's awesome. And the Hector that has the seed for having lied to Margaret.
Oh.
Do you see it? You see it?
I see what you're saying. By the way, everyone, he does have an awesome beard.
Okay.
Yes. They'll see in the pictures.
that Hector that lied to Margaret, the mind of that Hector that lied to Margaret now has the perfect conditions, just like a cup of tea, to arise as the narrative in my mind to say they don't really mean it. They think
they're
my
being
beard's ugly.
Sarcastic, right?
Yeah. A different Hector that meant it, in some future time, someone will say, hey, what's with your beard? Just those words. And Hector will go, oh, they really like my beard.
Yeah. Right.
Because that's the seed that now has a condition to ripen. And that is the intricate link between karma and emptiness. Things don't have a nature like we think they do, but they do exist. The nature they end up having for us is the stuff we do in our world. And that's why all the awesome practices of loving kindness, generosity, because you want to plant those seeds and not the shitty seeds. Sorry, can I say shitty on the podcast?
Yes.
Yeah, I said it twice. Yeah.
Yeah, so we could go for a trifecta if you want.
No, that would be shitty.
No, you're great. Okay, so I'm picturing, as we're talking, because we're saying seeds, so like I am actually picturing a garden, because sometimes I'm really too literal. That's a whole other podcast. But I am picturing like the difference between like, say, weeds and flowers and perceptions and things. And so for the purpose of this, I'm going to say weeds, although we could also say like, is a weed really a weed, right?
Yeah, good.
Right.
So Buddhist of you.
Of this analogy, if I plant more weeds, I'm going to see more weeds. If I plant more flowers, I'm going to see more flowers. But there's no promise for me in my current state as just a human being walking around that I'm not going to see a weed once in a while.
1,000%. You will be upset.
In my past, I've planted weeds. I've had poor intentions. I've done things that I could have done better. And so even if today I'm running around just throwing beautiful flower seeds everywhere, there's still a weed from my past.
I love that you said that, Margaret.
That makes sense.
Because it shows the depth of understanding. And this is why Buddhist practice is called practice. Right. Because you will bump into ugly things for as long as it takes for you to not have planted ugly things anymore. Right. And one of the practices of death, in fact, like there are in the Tibetan tradition, there are layers and layers of practicing with the ultimate weed, right. Which is the suffering that comes when things disintegrate, whether they be moment by moment, week by week, whether it's relationships, jobs, money ran out, or whatever the ending is, or death itself. Because it comes from what we've planted in the past, it doesn't have to carry the same narrative if we begin to reassociate and re-narrativize all those things. And when those things occur, your mind won't have a choice but to experience this thing as a possible bliss itself. That's why bliss is important.
And thank you for that. And this is why I hope that as many people as possible listen to us and are open to discussions around death, because I think it can be difficult. And I'm not promising that I will be able to get people to a stage where it will not be difficult at all. But I think through teachings like you're sharing with us, it can be less so, because we can stop viewing it as terrible and just view it as, this is a transition. In this transition, some weeds may pop up, but I don't have to let them strangle out everything.
Yeah, and it's not fair for the person going through the thing either to, on top of a death process, have to deal with people around them who are screaming and crying and upset.
I totally agree with that too. Yeah, I agree with that. I think if people ask for just one thing, I'll say, please don't make it about you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, please don't make it about you. That's beautiful. So Hector, we've had this great discussion and we're coming up on wrapping it up, because our time together also has impermanence, bliss and impermanence. And I was wondering though, is there something you would really like to share that we didn't get to, that I haven't asked you yet, or that just didn't come up?
Yeah, I do actually. Thank you. And the biggest thing is hope. For me, having understood these teachings to the level that I have and gotten to apply them, is not to be dogmatic, thou shalt, but to apply it to my everyday. And the more I do it, the more I have hope for the sufferings I see around the world, which are real. Mm-hmm. They can be completely undone, all of them completely undone, if we understand that we only have one job. If what we just said is true, that one job is my response to the next weed should be kindness. The more kind I can be to myself and the world, regardless of how horrible the situation is, then I'm not planting more weeds. And that's the only job, really. Like medium situation, find the kindness or the teaching. Terrible situation, find the insight or the kindness, whatever you can do. Think of others. Mm-hmm. Doing that repeatedly will weed out every suffering from every creature on this planet. And I feel that to the bone. And now my life finally has some meaning. It feels extraordinary to walk around and be able to not just endure the conditions of this life that are, but to use them and transmute them and transform them into the kindest thing. If my knee hurts, I think, oh, there's some pain. Mm-hmm. How many people in a nursing home have knee pain? May this pain remove their pain. That's a better way to deal with knee pain.
That's a beautiful way to deal with knee pain. And thank you so much for all your teaching today. And as you were talking, I was thinking, yes, because now what you're doing now, Hector, is you're helping to teach me how to have fewer weeds in my garden. And you can't necessarily push me aside and go, here, Margaret, let me get the weeds out of your garden. You can just help me. And then by helping me, I can create a space with fewer weeds. And then when I encounter others, then we're creating the cause and conditions for all of us to have fewer weeds or more bliss. I guess.
Yeah, which are oak trees in the forest or something in place of weeds. Yeah, or whatever flowers. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you so much. You've been listening to the Death Dhamma podcast with your host, Margaret Maloney. Thank you so much for being here. Come find me on margaretmaloney.com, MargaretMeloni.com. And until we meet again, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be at ease, and may you be free from suffering. Bye for now.